Now let's get on with chapter 25 of Katzung's board reviews. This chapter is all about general anesthetics. The general anesthesia is a state characterized by unconsciousness, analgesia, amnesia, skeletal muscle relaxation, and loss of reflexes. So, drugs used as general anesthetics are seen as depressants with actions that can be induced and terminated more rapidly than those of conventional sedative hypnotics. So, moving on to the classification of general anesthetics, you have two modes of administration of general anesthetics. You can make the patient inhale them, or you can administer the drug intravenously. So, moving on to the inhaled mode of administration, you can administer gases such as nitrous oxide, okay, and I think that is N2O. And then you can administer volatile liquids such as halothane, okay. So if you are making a person inhale the drug, you are making him inhale a gas. So that gas could be nitrous oxide or a volatile liquid such as halothane. Moving on to intravenous anesthetics, you have barbiturates such as thiopental. You have dissociative drugs such as ketamine. You have miscellaneous drugs such as etomidate or propofol. You can give opioids such as fentanyl, and you can give benzodiazepines such as midazolam. Okay, this is the basic classification. So, moving on to the stages of anesthesia, modern anesthetics act very rapidly and achieve deep anesthesia quickly. With older and more slowly acting anesthetics, the progressively greater depth of central depression associated with increasing dose or time of exposure is traditionally described as stages of anesthesia. So, in stage 1, the patient has decreased awareness of pain, sometimes with amnesia. Consciousness may be impaired, but it is not lost. Stage 2 is disinhibition. So the patient appears to be delirious and excited. So amnesia occurs, reflexes are enhanced, and respiration is irregular. Retching and incontinence may occur. Then stage 3 is surgical anesthesia. So the patient is unconscious and has no pain reflexes. Respiration is regular and blood pressure is maintained. Stage 4 is medullary depression. So the patient develops severe respiratory and cardiovascular depression that requires mechanical and pharmacological support to prevent death. So once again, just let us review the four basic stages. First, there is analgesia. Then there is disinhibition, in which the person is excited. Then there is surgical anesthesia, wherein the respiratory rate, which was irregular in stage 2, becomes regular, and blood pressure is also maintained. There are no pain reflexes. That is what we're looking for in stage 4 is medullary depression. So let us just discuss about anesthesia protocols briefly now. So anesthesia protocols vary according to the proposed type of diagnostic, therapeutic or surgical intervention. For minor procedures, conscious sedation techniques that combine intravenous agents with local anesthetics are often used. These can provide profound analgesia with retention of the patient's ability to maintain a patent airway and respond to verbal commands. For more extensive surgical procedures, anesthesia protocols commonly include intravenous drugs to induce the anesthetic state, inhaled anesthetics with or without intravenous agents to maintain an anesthetic state, and neuromuscular blocking agents to effect muscle relaxation. So, vital sign monitoring remains the standard method of assessing depth of anesthesia during surgery. What is that? Vital sign monitoring. Automated EEG monitoring, electroencephalogram monitoring, that is, an automated technique based on quantification of anesthetic effects is also useful. So let us just discuss a few high yield terms to learn before moving on to the mechanisms of action. So balanced anesthesia. It is anesthesia produced by a mixture of drugs, often including both inhaled and intravenous drugs. Inhalation anesthesia is anesthesia that is induced by inhalation of a drug. Then you have MAC or minimal alveolar anesthetic concentration. So the alveolar concentration of an inhaled anesthetic that is required to prevent a response to a standardized painful stimulus in 50% of patients. And analgesia is a state of decreased awareness of pain, sometimes with amnesia. In general, anesthesia is a state of unconsciousness, analgesia, and amnesia with skeletal muscle relaxation and loss of reflexes. Let us talk about the mechanisms of action now. The mechanisms of action of general anesthetics are varied. As CNS depressants, these drugs usually increase the threshold of firing of CNS neurons. The potency of inhaled anesthetics is roughly proportional to their lipid solubility. So, if the inhaled anesthetic gas or drug is more lipid soluble, then it has a higher anesthetic property. Mechanisms of action include effects on ion channels, by interactions with membrane lipids or proteins with subsequent effects on central neurotransmitter mechanisms. Inhaled anesthetics, barbiturates, benzodiazepines, and miscellaneous drugs such as etomidate and propofol facilitate GABA aminobutyric acid or GABA mediated inhibition at the GABA A receptors. So A, okay, you can remember as anesthesia. Anesthetics inhibit your CNS neurons, okay, they kind of raise the threshold of firing, so they facilitate GABA mediated inhibition at the GABA A receptors. A for anesthesia, you can remember like that. These receptors are sensitive to clinically relevant concentrations of the anesthetic agents and exhibit the appropriate stereospecific effects in case of enantiomeric drugs. Ketamine possibly acts via its antagonism of the action of the excitatory neurotransmitter glutamic acid on the NMDA receptors, N-methyl D-aspartate receptors. Most inhaled anesthetics also inhibit nicotinic ACH receptor isoforms at moderate to high concentrations. The strychnine sensitive glycine receptor is another ligand gated ion channel that may be a target for certain inhaled anesthetics. CNS neurons in different regions of the brain have different sensitivities to general anesthetics, and inhibition of neurons involved in pain pathways occurs before inhibition of neurons in the midbrain reticular formation. Moving on to inhaled anesthetics, so the classification and the pharmacokinetics. These agents are currently used in inhalation anesthesia, and they are usually nitrous oxide, which is a gas, and several easily vaporized liquid halogenated hydrocarbons including halothane, desflurane, N-fluorane, isoflurane, sevoflurane, and methoxyflurane. Fluorine is a halogen, right? So you also read about halothane being a fluorine compound, and also an anesthetic agent in chemistry NCRT in class 12. So they are administered as gases, but they are volatile liquids, right? So the partial pressure or tension in the inhaled air or in blood or other tissue is a measure of their concentration. Because the standard pressure of the total inhaled mixture is atmospheric pressure, which is 760 mm of He at sea level, the partial pressure may also be expressed as a percentage. Thus, 50% nitrous oxide in the inhaled air mixture would have a partial pressure of 380 millimeters of mercury. The speed of induction of anesthetic effects depends on several factors, such as solubility. So, the more rapidly a drug equilibrates with the blood, the more quickly the drug passes into the brain to produce anesthetic effects. Drugs with drugs with a low blood gas partition coefficient, such as nitrous oxide, when the partition coefficient for the blood gas interface is low, equilibration is faster. So, drugs with a low blood gas partition coefficient, such as nitrous oxide, equilibrate more rapidly than those with a higher blood solubility, such as halothane. Partition coefficients for inhalation, we'll discuss them in this table. So in this figure you can see why induction of anesthesia is slower with more soluble anesthetic gases and faster with less soluble ones. So in the schematic diagram, solubility is represented by the size of the blood compartment. So the more soluble the gas, the larger is a compartment. So for a given concentration of partial pressure of the two anesthetic gases in the inspired air, it will take much longer with halothane than with nitrous oxide for the blood partial pressure to rise to the same partial pressure as in the alveoli. Okay, so here you can see nitrous oxide and here you can see halothane. So it is relatively fast for the blood partial pressure to reach that of the drug in the alveoli when inhaled, but it is relatively slow for halothane, which is more soluble, to reach the partial pressure of that in the alveoli. Because the concentration in the brain can rise no faster than the concentration in the blood, the onset of anesthesia will be much slower with halothane than with nitrous oxide. The principle here is that nitrous oxide, the blood uh, the blood gas partition coefficient is low, and because the partition coefficient is low, it can equilibrate faster. Next, you have the inspired gas partial pressure. So high partial pressure of the gas in the lungs requires or results in more rapid achievement of anesthetic levels in the blood. This effect can be put to use by the initial administration of gas concentrations higher than those required for maintenance of anesthesia. Next, the ventilation rate. The greater the ventilation, the more rapid is the rise in alveolar and blood partial pressure of the agent and the onset of anesthesia. This effect is taken advantage of in the induction of the anesthetic state. And then pulmonary blood flow. At high pulmonary blood flow, the gas partial pressure rises at a slower rate. Thus, the speed of onset of anesthesia is reduced. When the flow is more, what happens is if this is uh, if this is your blood, okay, blood vessel, pulmonary blood vessel, and it is supposed to enter into the blood brain barrier or whatever from this blood vessel, it needs to actually go from here and diffuse there, right? So diffusion is a slow process. So if your blood is moving faster, the drug has less time to diffuse into the tissue, so effective diffusion does not take place and only a little amount of the drug will diffuse into the tissue and cause anesthesia. So at low flow rates, the onset is faster. In circulatory shock, this effect may accelerate the rate of onset of anesthesia with agents of high blood solubility. Next, AV concentration gradient. So uptake of soluble anesthetics into highly perfused tissues may decrease gas tension in mixed venous blood. This can influence the rate of onset of anesthesia because achievement of equilibrium is dependent on the difference in anesthetic tension between arterial and venous blood. Okay, so in this figure you can see the ventilation rate and arterial anesthetic tensions. So increased ventilation, as you can see here, at 8 liters per minute versus 2 liters per minute has a much greater effect on equilibration of halothane than nitrous oxide. Okay, so partition coefficient has a better influence on nitrous oxide, and the ventilation rate has a much greater effect on equilibration of halothane. Okay, as you can see here, so 2 versus 8. It's not just halothane, but yeah, basically. So here at 2 liters per minute, the time taken for the same amount of time taken, if you consider the x-axis constant, the y-axis is concentrations, you can see it is higher at a higher partial pressure. Okay, so then moving on to the elimination. Okay, you can see the blood gas partition coefficients here. You don't need to know all this. Okay, so you have to remember one thing, that halothane has a high blood gas partition coefficient and nitrous oxide has a relatively lower blood gas partition coefficient. Desflurane has the lowest blood gas partition coefficient. Moving on to the elimination. So inhaled anesthesia is terminated by redistribution of the drug from the brain to the blood, from the blood to the alveolar air, and elimination of the drug through the lungs. Okay, so normally this is your alveoli in your lungs. Okay, it is being perfused with blood and this blood is reaching your brain. Okay, the same opposite route happens in case of elimination, from your brain to the blood and from the blood to the alveoli, and then it is expired out. The rate of recovery from anesthesia using agents with low blood gas partition coefficients is faster than that of anesthetics with high blood solubility. This important property has led to the introduction of several newer inhaled anesthetics such as desflurane with a very low blood gas partition coefficient of 0.42 when compared to the 0.47 of nitrous oxide. Sevoflurane, which because of their low blood solubility are characterized by recovery times that are considerably shorter than is the case with older agents. Halothane and methoxyflurane are metabolized by liver enzymes to a significant extent, and metabolism of halothane and methoxyflurane has only a minor influence on the speed of recovery from their anesthetic effect, but does play a role in potential toxicity of these anesthetics. Moving on to the minimum alveolar anesthetic concentration, or MAC, minimum alveolar concentration. So it is defined, the potency of inhaled anesthetics is best measured by MAC, and it is defined as the alveolar concentration required to eliminate the response to a standardized painful stimulus in 50% of patients. In each anesthetic, there is a defined MAC, but this value may vary among patients depending on age, cardiovascular status, and use of adjuvant drugs. Estimations of MAC value suggest a relatively steep dose response relationship for inhaled anesthetics. MACs for infants and elderly patients are lower than those for adolescents and young adults, so when several anesthetic agents are used simultaneously, their MAC values are additive. So 0.5 MAC nitrous oxide plus 0.5 MAC desiflurane gives 1 MAC of inhaled anesthetic. Moving on to the effects of inhaled anesthetics. So the CNS effects, They decrease the brain metabolic rate, they reduce the vascular resistance and thus increase cerebral blood flow. This may lead to an increase in intracranial pressure. High concentrations of N-fluorine may cause spike and wave activity and muscle twitching, but this effect is unique to this drug. What is the drug? N-fluorine. N-fluorine unique. En, N-fluorine, Un, unique. All unique in causing spike and wave activity and muscle twitching. Although nitrous oxide has a low anesthetic potency, it exerts marked analgesic and amnestic actions. Next, cardiovascular effects. The most inhaled anesthetics decrease arterial blood pressure moderately. Enflurane and halothane are myocardial depressants that decrease cardiac output, whereas isoflurane, desflurane, and sevoflurane, the newer ones, cause peripheral vasodilation. Nitrous oxide is less likely to lower blood pressure than are other inhaled anesthetics. Blood flow to the liver and kidneys decreased by most inhaled agents. Inhaled anesthetics depress myocardial function, nitrous oxide least. So, halothane and to a lesser degree isoflurane may sensitize the myocardium to the antiarrhythmogenic effects of catecholamines. Moving on to the respiratory effects, although the rate of respiration may be increased, all inhaled anesthetics cause a dose-dependent decrease in tidal volume and minute ventilation, leading to an increase in arterial carbon dioxide tension. So, inhaled anesthetics decrease ventilatory response to hypoxia even at sub-anesthetic concentrations, such as during recovery. Nitrous oxide has the smallest effect on respiration. Most inhaled anesthetics are bronchodilators, but desflurane is a pulmonary irritant and may cause bronchospasm. The pungency of enflurane causes breath holding, which limits its use in anesthesia induction. Moving on to toxicity. So, post-operative hepatitis or post-op hepatitis has occurred rarely after halothane anesthesia, halohepatitis, in patients experiencing hypovolemic shock or other severe stress. The mechanism of hepatotoxicity is unclear but may involve formation of reactive metabolites that cause direct toxicity or initiate immune-mediated responses. Fluoride released by metabolism of methoxyflurane and possibly enflurane and sevoflurane may cause renal insufficiency after prolonged anesthesia. Prolonged exposure to nitrous oxide decreases methionine synthase activity and may lead to megaloblastic anemia. Susceptible patients may develop malignant hyperthermia when anesthetics are used together with neuromuscular blockers, especially succinylcholine. So, this rare condition is thought in some cases to be due to mutations in the gene loci corresponding to the ryanodine receptor. Other chromosomal loci for malignant hypothermia include mutant alleles of the gene encoding skeletal muscle L-type calcium channels, the uncontrolled release of calcium by the sarcoplasmic reticulum of the skeletal muscle leads to muscle spasm, hyperthermia, and autonomic lability. Dantrolene is indicated for the treatment of this life-threatening condition with supportive management. What do you use? Dantrolene. So, Skillkeeper, like most drugs, general anesthetics appear to act via interactions with specific receptor molecules involved in cell signaling. So, for review purposes, you can list the major types of transmembrane signaling mechanisms relevant to the actions of drugs that act via receptors. We'll talk about them later. So, now that we've discussed the inhaled anesthetics, let us move on to the other category, which is about intravenous anesthetics. So, first you have propofol. It produces anesthesia as rapidly as the intravenous barbiturates, and recovery is more rapid. Okay, propofol, rapid recovery. Propofol has anti-emetic actions and recovery is not delayed after prolonged infusion. The drug is very commonly used as a component of balanced anesthesia. Propofol is proper balance, okay? And as an anesthetic in outpatient surgery. Propofol is also effective in producing prolonged sedation. Prolonged again, sedation. Proper balance, prolonged sedation in patients in intensive care settings. Propofol may cause marked hypotension. Okay. Po means fall. Okay, so fall in the BP. Marked hypotension during induction of anesthesia primarily through decreased peripheral resistance. Total body clearance of propofol is greater than hepatic blood flow, suggesting that its elimination includes other mechanisms in addition to metabolism by liver enzymes. Phos-propofol, a water-soluble prodrug form, is broken down in the body by alkaline phosphatase to form propofol. However, onset and recovery are both slower than propofol. Although propofol appears to cause less pain at injection sites than the standard form of the drug, many patients experience paresthesias. Next, barbiturates. You have thiopentol and methohexatol, which all have a high lipid solubility, which promotes rapid entry into the brain and results in surgical anesthesia in one circulation time less than 1 minute. Okay. These drugs are used for induction of anesthesia and for short surgical procedures. The anesthetic effects of thiopental are terminated by redistribution from the brain to other highly perfused tissues, but hepatic metabolism is required for elimination from the body. Barbiturates are respiratory and circulatory depressants. Because they depress cerebral blood flow, they can also decrease the intracranial pressure. You have benzodiazepines next. So midazolam is widely used adjunctively with inhaled anesthetics and intravenous opioids. The onset of its CNS effects is slower than that of thiopental, and it has a longer duration of action. And then cases of severe postoperative respiratory depression have occurred. The benzodiazepine receptor antagonist flumazenil accelerates recovery from midazolam and other benzodiazepines. So if you are recovering very slowly from midazolam and other benzodiazepines, you can use the benzodiazepine receptor antagonist flumazenil to displace the drug from the receptor and cause recovery from anesthesia. So here you can see redistribution of thiopental after intravenous bolus administration. So you need to note that the time axis is not linear. Okay. So here you can see the percent of dose. As the percent of dose in the blood decreases, means as elimination is happening, what happens is its concentration in the fat increases. Okay, but as the concentration in the blood is decreasing, it means it is going into the brain for some time, and then after that it is again being excreted from the brain as well. And as the concentration increases in fat, and the concentration in the concentration decreases in blood, it also increases in lean tissues. Okay. Next, ketamine. This drug produces a state of dissociative anesthesia in which the patient remains conscious but has marked catatonia, analgesia, and amnesia. So ketamine, you can remember as cat. Okay, so catatonia, analgesia, and amnesia. So dissociative anesthesia. Ketamine is a chemical congener of the psychotomimetic agent phencyclidine (PCP) and inhibits NMDA glutamate transmission. The drug is a cardiovascular stimulant, and this action may lead to an increase in intracranial pressure. Emergence reactions including disorientation, excitation, and hallucinations which occur during recovery from ketamine anesthesia can be reduced by preoperative use of benzodiazepines. Next, opioids. So you have morphine and fentanyl, which are used with other CNS depressants such as nitrous oxide and benzodiazepines in anesthesia regimens and are especially valuable in high-risk patients who might not survive a full general anesthetic. Intravenous opioids may cause chest wall rigidity, which can impair ventilation. Respiratory depression with these drugs may be reversed post-operatively with naloxone. So, neuroleptanesthesia is a state of anesthesia and amnesia that is produced when the opioid fentanyl is used along with droperidol and nitrous oxide. Neuroleptanesthesia, when fentanyl is used along with droperidol and nitrous oxide. Newer opioids related to fentanyl have been introduced for intravenous anesthesia. Alfentanil and remifentanil have been used for induction of anesthesia. Recovery from the actions of remifentanil is faster. Recovery faster for remifentanil. Recovery. Than recovery from other opioids used in anesthesia because of its rapid metabolism by blood and tissue esterases. Then you have a miscellaneous drug, etomidate. So this imidazole derivative affords rapid induction with minimal change in cardiac function or respiratory rate and has a short duration of action. The drug is not analgesic, and its primary advantage in anesthesia is for patients with limited cardiac or respiratory reserve. Etomidate may cause pain and myoclonus on injection and nausea post-operatively, so prolonged administration may cause adrenal suppression. Finally, dexmedetomidine, and the centrally acting alpha-2 adrenergic agonist has analgesic and hypnotic actions when used intravenously. Its characteristics include rapid clearance resulting in a short elimination half-life. Dexmedetomidine is mainly used for short-term sedation in ICU setting. When used in general anesthesia, the drug decreases dosage requirements for both inhaled and intravenous anesthetics because the MAC adds up. Yes, so here you can see skill keeper answer. The receptors that modify gene transcription, so you have adrenal and gonadal steroids. Receptors on membrane spanning enzymes, you have insulin. Receptors activating Janus kinases and Janus kinases that modulate start molecules, you have cytokines. Directly coupled to ion channels, you have GABA, glycine, etc., nicotinic ACH receptors and all. Receptors coupled to enzymes via G proteins. You have many endogenous compounds such as acetylcholine, norepinephrine, serotonin, histamine, and drugs. And then receptors that are enzymes or transporters. You have acetylcholinesterase, angiotensin converting enzyme, carbonic anhydrase, H plus K plus antiporter, etc. Okay, so this is all about this chapter.